Hi, I'm Seamless, and welcome to part 2 of how to base, I think, 64. Pretty sure it's 64. I could be wrong. I don't care. The title will be correct. The title is always right, because I can do that later. So this is a bit of a... I could have sworn I did a video on this in the past. I looked. I didn't, apparently. I did one on short resynthesis, and that's where you resynthesize a very short amount of modulation, and then you resynthesize it, and then you move around, and because it's so short, there's less jumpy modulation from 0 to full. So that's cool. But this is long modulation resynthesis, and what that means is we are resynthesizing a huge just portion of modulation, which is what this sound is. It's all kinds of craziness. And like I pointed out in the first video, it's this sound. It goes on for quite a while. But that sound was created using the previous how to base. And this is all about what you do after you make the sound. This is about how you utilize Harmor to resynthesize the sound and play it like it's a real bass. Like it's a synth. I could have sworn I did a video on this before, but even if I did, this is more fun anyway. So I'm going to start this one from scratch because it's relatively straightforward. So yes, drop it, drag it, drop it. And there it is. All kinds of good stuff. Now, that's what happens by default. It'll basically try to recreate the sound one-to-one. And normally what I would do for resampling is that I would just turn on some music and then record it and then have it actually be that modulation and then cut it up and use it. But what I'm actually doing now is I'm going to create it, I'm going to organize it in such a way that I can play it. I'm going to play the sound. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the scale down. So this is the pixel frequency scale. And what this means is that based on the image that it created by processing the audio, the pixels are moving around the harmonics as such that it creates the original sound. But as I move it back to 0, the resynthesis basically becomes a vocoder in the sense that it has these harmonics that are flat. They're always just going to be flat. And then the sound is, as we are hearing it, is occurring purely from gain manipulation, which is to say that the harmonics that occupy the areas of the sound that are being changed in gain, as denoted by bright or dark sections of the audio, will change the levels of the harmonics that are in its way, basically. As opposed to the harmonics and the sine waves of the additive resynthesizing moving around to actually be the sound, now it's basically staying put, as if this were a 512 band vocoder. Now, here's the thing about this thing. This was originally a bass, which means that it was played at a low note. And what I'm playing right now is C5. And it's coming across as C5. However, actually it's coming across as slightly higher than C5, I think. Yeah, or lower rather. As you can see, it actually moved it down a little bit to give room for the resampling. But if you go over into advanced and we turn on to high precision, it's going to double the amount of available harmonics that are being used to create the sound. And now it's actually at the appropriate level that we want. So the first thing I'm going to do after having done this is I'm going to turn on harmonic protection. This means that the lowest 3 harmonics are always going to have at least something happening. And the lowest harmonic is going to be stable the whole time. And this means that I'll have a definitive low end applied to the sound, which is nice. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sharpness knob, I'm going to turn it down. And weirdly, and not at all as you would expect by denoting what the sharpness, this being called the sharpness knob, turning it off actually makes it sharper. And this has interesting things to do with how it interprets sound. It's not terribly obvious, but if you could zoom in long enough and far enough, if you turn down the sharpness, it actually skips around the samples, quote unquote. I refer to these little lines here as samples. I'm not actually sure if they are actually samples. I don't know if they are because I feel like there'd be a lot more of them if they were, but they are little moments in time that are information of harmonic placement, and the sharpness knob would actually move through them not at an even pace. Some of them would be done faster, and some of them would be done slower, and that actually contributes to being the original sound. In terms of actually resynthesizing it, but that's not what we want to do. We want it to play basically 1-to-1 speed, and layering that over vocoding the original saw wave harmonic count. Well, I mean, that's what I wanted to do. You can do whatever you want, but that's what I want. And that's what I did. Now I'm going to turn speed off. I'm going to turn smooth off. And this is pretty much the meat of the whole thing right here. This is like the world's most complicated wavetable. So now the main modulation of the sound is being determined by the time knob. And so you just move it around, you find stuff that's cool, and then you make modulation for the sound. That's kind of neat. Other fun things. Okay, so here's other interesting notes to make about how this works. So by default, if I change pitch, everything moves up. Like all the position of all the that all moves up in pitch as well. But if I turn on the formant mix, you can see some things move with the pitch, but some things don't. And in fact, these are what we refer to as the formants in terms of harmonic usage of them. So I don't really know how it figures out which is what, but basically that those characteristics will stay at the original level no matter what pitch you're using. And of course, you can also move them around with the formant knob itself. The only bummer about doing that is that you get this kind of effect where you're losing a lot of the high-end information because you're moving it down. And you can remedy this by not using that knob at all and going into the drop-down menus here and going to Image Format Mutation. And here we have a line that will actually move specific areas of formants specifically, as you can see. So I could actually leave the high frequencies where they are, or even make them higher if I want to. We can get much more sinister sounding things. And then I added some unison, pretty run-of-the-mill stuff in terms of what I do. I made a specific little shape, and then I disordered it. So that's a lot of fun. There's not really a whole lot else to this. Like, I actually already differed a little bit from what the original sound I had done was. That was just different unison settings and then not doing what I said about the format thing. Oh yeah, and I also turned on the mix a little bit. I turned the mix down, which brings back the original timbre settings. Which doesn't really seem to work in this particular example. But that's what I had done in this one. So I'll put this one in there too, this example, because they're both using the same file. Yes, drag sample 3333333. Drag sample 3333333. Yeah, so it worked out pretty good. Yep, this is more or less what I've done. I did this once in a recent track. I'm not even done with it. It's a collaboration I'm doing with Prismatic. That's not done at all, but that is a technique that I've used, and I plan on using it more in newer things that I do because I think it's a nice technique, and I believe that you guys will find the cool things to do with it. If you have any questions about any of this, let me know. And as usual, have a nice day. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Got it.